My name is Daniel Elliott, and I'm Director of Education and Strategic Initiatives at the National Cybersecurity Alliance, and I want to welcome you all to today's webinar. So today we're going to be featuring the Cyber Essentials resources, in particular, Chapter 1, Yourself the Leader, Driving Cybersecurity Strategy, Investment, and Culture. So we're excited to have Kevin Dillon back as a speaker. He spoke on our January webinar. We're happy that he was available to come talk about the Cyber Essentials resource. Kevin Dillon serves as the Associate Director of Strategic Relations for the Stakeholder Engagement Division of the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA. Kevin's team works with stakeholders in industry, government, and academia as force multipliers to enhance CISA's strategic objectives. Prior to joining CISA, Kevin spent several years in consulting in the financial services sector and has over 20 years of experience across the public and private sector. So we're very happy to have him. So, Kevin, I'm going to unmute you. And are you with us?
I'm great, thank you.
Great.
Okay, appreciate it, Daniel. So hey, I'll jump right in and just wanted to thank you, Daniel, and NCSA for hosting us today. CISA and NCSA have had a long partnership, so we do appreciate the time today. Partnering on a number of range of issues. So if you want to jump to the next slide for me. Before I get into the topic today for the first chapter of Cyber Essentials, just highlight a couple of recent things from CISA that may be of interest to the audience. So we have our third annual National Cybersecurity coming up. As you can imagine, this will be virtual. So it's a series of days starting in September, like every Wednesday for 4 weeks. We're going to have a couple hour sessions, different themes. To visit that and register, you can go to CISA.gov/CyberSummit2020. If you forget all that, just CISA.gov and you'll find the links there. What we're talking about today, want to just kind of reinforce the idea you can sign up for CISA alerts. These are available to everybody. Get timely information, could be vulnerability alerts, our community bulletin, just other publications such as Cyber Essentials. As those are released, alert notices go out for those. So you can sign up for those, no problem. Another recent thing that we're super proud of is a CISA service catalog that we just released. Spent a lot of time putting this together, and this is available again on CISA.gov. And really here's just a compendium of the full suite of program and services that are available to everybody that's on this call. You can go through that as an interactive catalog. It has all the resources, even down to an index with descriptions of those. Not only that, the contact information or the web link, the resource of where to get that, where to ask for that service. So we're very proud of that. Not on this slide, but would be remiss if I didn't highlight National Cybersecurity Awareness Month coming up in October. CISA and NCSA are partners in this, and this year's theme is Do Your Part, Be Cyber Smart. Just encouraging individuals and organizations to really kind of own their role in protecting their part of cybersecurity, stressing personal accountability and the importance of proactive steps to enhance cybersecurity. Again, I'd point you to CISA.gov for resources on that, the different themes throughout the month, toolkits, et cetera. So just continue to pay attention to that resource as well. All right, we can go to the next slide, Daniel, and just kind of jump in here. So this slide here is really just kind of a depiction of the initial Cyber Essentials infographic that we released a number of months back. Just a quick level set, the Cyber Essentials were developed as just intended to be an easy set of cybersecurity practices that really form the basics. When we have stakeholders coming to us, a lot of times if they're in the beginning of their journey, they may ask, where do I start? So, after hearing that question for a lot of time, we put together a 2-page infographic. What you're looking at here is the first piece, and then it's got a leader guide and a IT professional guide. So they both, build off of each other. But the first piece here you're looking at just provides kind of the overarching message, and then we have a series of modules. We're talking about Toolkit 1 today, and these modules really just designed to break down these essentials into really manageable bite-sized actions with links to resources. So we want to describe a little bit about some essential actions, but then point you to available resources out there on the web so you can dig in, learn more, and really take action on those things. Each toolkit chapter focuses on those 6 essential elements to building that culture of cyber readiness. We've got yourself, which is obviously a focus of today's conversation. The second one that's been released is your staff. Third one coming up, I'm hopefully this week, just getting through approvals here within CISA, will be your systems. Then we'll have your surroundings, your data, and then your actions under stress. So again, today we're talking about yourself, the leader, and we'll give a bunch of examples around that. And just again, look for those toolkits, the remaining ones to be released over the next couple months, culminating at the end of September prior to October's National Cybersecurity Awareness Month. Next slide for me. Okay, so talking about the idea here as, yourself, the leader, and really establishing a culture of cybersecurity. Today I'm going to just kind of talk about, an organization in a general sense, right? So folks on this call, you may be part of a large organization, a very small organization, a government agency. So we're trying to kind of fit everything into one example here. But when we talk about cyber essentials, we're really looking at the essential basic steps that we really think every organization should be taking to really improve their cybersecurity posture. But also when we say a culture, right, that's relating to everything you do as an organization and all the roles and the different areas that support your organization. So it's really that culture piece. The idea here that we're talking about and reinforcing is that cybersecurity is more than a plan, more than an idea of just a checklist or an individual that's responsibility or a team. Really want it to be that holistic approach to the organization. Everybody, has a role to play, has a part, from, again, all levels of the organization. Everyone kind of needs to be all in on this. You probably read the news just like everybody else. Cyber threat is very real. During this time, we've seen, heightened concerns in that, whether it be something related to heightened phishing, increased phishing, scams related to COVID-19, whatever the case may be, the entire workforce is being remote. Just the idea that all hands on deck approach to cybersecurity. And as I go through, we'll kind of give, took a little bit different vibe here for this briefing to give an idea of the different roles in an organization and what they play and what their part is in being a leader. So the slide, again, just talks about various disciplines within an organization. If we use terms like, CEO or CFO, I mean, if you're a smaller organization, you may not use those roles, and you may be the CFO, the IT manager, the help desk all in one. But just the ideas here, we think, still apply and are common to all organizations, small business, nonprofit, government agency, et cetera. If you're a super large organization, these, may represent entire departments. And as I said, a small organization may have all these functions in one. So again, we're going to talk about this in this holistic approach, and then just try to give you some practical steps as you look to build your own culture of cybersecurity. Next slide. Okay, so for today's focus, we're going to really be talking about the role of the leader in an organization, and through that lens of leadership, and we'll talk about a couple additional areas of an organization that we think can play an important role in helping the organization lead and build that culture of cybersecurity, specifically like the general counsel, your legal team, human resources, and the finance org. Again, reinforce that everybody in the org has a significant role to play with cybersecurity, but just today, we're going to kind of focus on these four and talk about some roles, responsibilities, practical tips. We'll walk through, we're going to try to do some poll questions through today's slides. So with that, we'll go ahead and jump in and get started. Go to the next slide for me. Cool. Thank you. So, again, starting at the leader, promoting the culture of cybersecurity, should begin at the top. Some may think of, cybersecurity as strictly as an IT issue, or that person over there that, no one knows what they do or understands it. And that, certainly IT is part of that. But what we're talking about here is that, kind of holistic, all hands on deck approach and building cyber into your organization's DNA, sort of how you live and breathe every day, and really think about it all the time. So as we view cyber in the context of risk, and then manage that cyber risk in the content of your physical, your operational, your financial risks, and build cyber into your existing risk management, acquisition, governance processes. Set an example as a leader of your organization, for your teams, for your employees. I'd reinforce that, being a cyber leader is not something that requires this huge technical expertise, but it's really that ability to lead and change your culture, and look at cyber as a very important thing. Reducing your cyber risk certainly requires an awareness, but that awareness ultimately can drive your investment, then drives capacity building, drives capabilities for the organization. So if start with aware, right? If you're an organization that gets this already, you live and breathe this already, then our hope is that you take these ideas, you look at the cyber essentials, you pass that to your friend or your neighbor or that small business you do business with. Say, hey, are you using these things? Are you looking at this kind of basic things? So again, it does certainly requires an investment of time and money, and the buy-in across the board. But those investments, again, as I said, drive that action, drives capacity, drives capability. Toolkit itself has 5 essential actions. Each action has resources linked to those to help you get those. Throughout the presentation, I'll discuss some of those examples and kind of give reference. Partners like NCSA and others have been very good about giving us feedback and saying, hey, look at this resource. This may be valuable. Not to say everything in here is the end-all be-all, meaning there's lots more out there. You could really dig into this and find other resources out there. So again, this is a good starting point. But the 5 essential actions we're talking about is approaching cyber as a business risk, really leader-focused piece. Looking at how much of your organization's operations are dependent on your information technology, again, from a leader focus. Leading the investment in cybersecurity, building a network of trusted relationships, and then leading development of cybersecurity policies, which is likely something you're going to be discussing with your staff or maybe your service providers or your vendors. So we have a few questions on the slide here. Just general things for consideration, like do you have a plan for managing risk? Do you have a plan for responding to incidents? Do your managers, does the entire organization staff know how to respond and know what their role is in the security mechanism? All right, so we're going to try to we'll put up a poll question here. I just kind of want to hear throughout the webinar, where organizations are. So the first one is, who in your organization is responsible for developing the cyber risk policy? We have examples here like board of directors. Is it the president, CEO, or if you're a government agency, the head of your agency, legal counsel, IT, cybersecurity manager? We haven't decided yet. That's why we're here for the webinar, or maybe other. So I think those will pop up on the screen, and then as we go through, they'll kind of generate feedback, and we can kind of pivot off those and speak to those a little bit. All right, if we go to the next slide for me. So again, some additional tips to leaders, just some kind of practical steps for leaders as they think about, the top 3 bullets here, approaching cyber as a business risk, assuming responsibility for cyber policy, engaging your board, or if the board's not applicable, just your organization on what cyber threats and kind of risk issues you have. It's just really, something to think about. When we talk about approaching cyber as a business risk, think about, what would be a catastrophic impact to your operation? If you lost information or something was impacted, how does that impact your employees, customers, business partners, et cetera? Have you set a sort of level of risk that you're comfortable with? In other terms, maybe risk appetite statement, and then, raise the level of awareness regarding that across your organization and really help you make informed decisions. Maybe not lean maybe too far forward. You got to kind of find the right balance for your organization. I think it's great to understand and determine what your dependency on information technology is to conduct business, and really make that part of your day-to-day plans for contingencies. So, if you're a small business and as a result of COVID, right, you've shifted to online ordering and really had to do that rapidly. What happens if that goes out, right? Do you have a contingency plan? Do you know what to do, how to restore those normal operations, and maybe build a little bit more resiliency into your day-to-day? Have those conversations with your vendors, your partners, et cetera, to really understand what that dependence is, and plan for maybe a possible bad day. We have the idea of kind of building a network of trusted relationships for access to current and timely cyber threat information. This could be an organization like CISA. This could be like NCSA. You could go to your, vendor's update page, subscribe to alerts, so on and so forth. Just, have that network of, who you trust, and then share that across your organization so that those folks in the HR, the legal, finance organization, they're aware, they're in tune a little bit. We have the idea of kind of, training being essential. Every employee from the top to the bottom should have some kind of, security awareness and training is, to the best of your ability. There's, a wealth of training opportunities out there. There really is that are, no cost, low cost, conversations like today, like, NCSA has, again, other organizations, CISA.gov. There's private sector organizations that have, nice security videos, short, succinct things. So again, just building that holistic approach. Think about things like exercises for your organization. These don't have to be super complicated. They can be getting around a table and talking about, your dependence on IT and what would happen if there was a, short-term, long-term outage, and what are you going to do about that? How are you going to rapidly reduce vulnerabilities? Again, communicate and promote who does what when something potentially bad could happen. So just, setting the stage there, tips for leaders. Go to next slide. So we want to just, not taking differences from the toolkit itself, but when we're talking about leaders and all-in approach, a holistic approach to cyber, I want to give examples of a couple, roles within an organization. Again, this may be multifaceted, right? It may be the, the second, third role for you or someone in your organization, but if you have a legal counsel or legal department, you want to be involving these folks in your cyber efforts. It may be something that you're involved in a, regulatory environment, and that landscape is changing, and you need to be aware of those. Those need to kind of drive some of your decisions to be able to, understand what those requirements are going to be for you. They may have a key role in, contract negotiations. They may have great insights into risk going into like a new line of business or approaching an entirely new stack of information technology that, you want to get some advice and weigh in on the potential risks there, and maybe even help you develop that risk management strategy. And certainly then, legal counsel could help you navigate in the event of some sort of, IT incident, compromise, breach, et cetera. So, we also think about, how they're going to help you manage vendor contracts, focus on the role you need, how you manage those relationships. The idea is, you can obviously outsource IT services, but, not necessarily the risk. You're still going to have, the organization itself owns that risk. So if, let's say you move to an entire cloud environment, you need to understand those shared roles and responsibilities between that cloud service provider and you as the organization. So I think we have try to do another poll question here, and just thinking about, what role does legal counsel play in your org's cybersecurity? We got a couple options there. Was developing cybersecurity policy, researching and advising on cybersecurity law, reviewing vendor contracts, incident response, all the above, or none of the above, as some of the questions. And I'm not sure if those are, okay, yeah, they're popping up over there, cool. All right, we'll go to next slide, some of the tips for legal counsel here. So for your organization, obviously you can, share these things, thinking about, again, ensuring compliance. Compliance does not necessarily equal security, but you need to understand what your legal requirements and regulations are. So, this is all about engaging, making sure you've involved that legal counsel in your policy planning efforts. Example here, we have got a reference to, leading the development of cybersecurity policies in the toolkit itself, and just how that's a policy roadmap, having just a comprehensive set of policies for the organization, and then communicating those and making sure that folks are aware of those. Going back to kind of managing those vendor contracts, understanding the difference, again, roles and responsibilities for who's doing what, who owns the security piece, maybe some balance of risk there, identifying, data protection requirements, contractual obligations, et cetera. Some things to ask for service providers, what policies, procedures, technical controls are you using to enhance security? How do you audit your systems? What security and privacy responsibilities are you not covering? And, what measures do you recommend that my organization take to enhance security? So, we talk about here for tips for legal counsels, employee communications being very important, making sure staff have easy access to the policies and guidance that your organization has set forth. And then, another tip for, the legal part of your organization, being ready to respond. How do you need to function together in the event of a security event or breach? You may need counsel to help with gathering information on the breach and the data that's compromised, determining what kind of notices are necessary, which party should be notified, when notices should be given, and then, even maybe helping with drafting and sending notices about a breach, for example. That little piece there, if you want to see a little bit more information, then we have, again, a toolkit coming out later in this year. The Cyber Essentials, your actions under stress is, an area there that would be helpful for the legal counsel tips. Okay, we go to next slide, looking at, role of human resources in your organization as leaders. Really being that we think in cybersecurity, human issue, very important to build that healthy cybersecurity culture, build employee trust, really invest in those employee education awareness, and that's a role that HR can play here. I think we want to always try to get away from where we blame the users as an example. We want the organization to enable users to make good decisions. I think HR can really do, be a help there to help them, keep engaged, keep motivated, make sure that they've, again, got the right information and training, and they're, feeding off that leadership organization, getting funding for these type of things. Obviously they're going to have a big role in cybersecurity policies. I think at least they should be. Is there things in beyond, meetings and just kind of email traditional training? Is there, day-to-day conversations, the way you're doing things? Can HR help you craft cybersecurity messages that are really helpful and meaningful for the organization? Again, maybe moving away from that sort of, you see a lot of, blame the user sort of thinking there. Full question on this one is, to what extent is your workforce involved in your organization's cybersecurity? So we've got, actively involved, meaning, regularly trained in cybersecurity best practices, somewhat or moderately, they learn policies during onboarding, but that may be it, or, not engaged at all. Cool. All right, we'll go to the next slide. Okay, so some, tips around the, the human resources part of that leader organization. Think about job descriptions, make sure that to the best of your ability, cybersecurity responsibilities are, really well defined. Maybe if possible, involve existing employees in this effort, have them provide input to, what the job role should be. Make that cybersecurity training part of employee onboarding, have a refresher training at some, level of, recurring time frame. Again, go back to kind of consider easy, simple ways to build cyber messages into those training programs, identify resources that are available to them, look at, there's, academic institutions, private sector institutions, so on and so forth. So, in this time with just mass movement to remote work, we also have the idea of, maybe HR looking at creating a role of like a security communicator. This could be, anybody in the organization, but, making sure that everybody really knows how to, know policies regarding passwords, how to interact with email, how to interact with your new collaboration tools, for example. Have maybe a liaison between IT and the staff, someone that they can go to and, ask questions, and, have people look at that cybersecurity policy, confirm they've read and understand it, et cetera. So I just thought the idea of someone that can communicate and really be that champion for security and champion for the, the remote work staff that, a lot of organizations are facing now, could be really helpful. Have a bullet, have your human resources coordinated with your IT operations. So, if you've got an employee that's either, terminated, transferred, resigned, any of the above, operations is informing human resources, human resources informing HR, human resources informing IT operations as soon as humanly possible to disable those accounts. I think that just that coordination amongst HR and ops is always a good thing. And then, maybe think about ways for your team to be creative, fun ways to engage your employee population, security messages, contests, just try to incentives for change as a key way. Think about, again, good behavior, reward good behaviors, I guess is what, at the end of the day, what we're trying to say there. All right, we can go to next slide. So finance, another role that's going to be super important in the leadership organization. I really do think they're going to play an integral role in cybersecurity. Again, we had the example of a CFO. Don't worry about role names, but finance as a role. That group or that individual is going to be somebody that's really likely going to be reporting on initiatives within the organization, the health, the progress, the timeliness of those, and really, kind of trying to demonstrate the value of the investments that the organization is being made. And I think absolutely, the finance group could have a really key role in assessing risks to the business, and likely should be part of those cybersecurity risk assessment conversations. Go back to that, awareness driving investment drives capability, capacity for the organization. So again, important for that financial group to be part of that conversation. And again, those folks should be coordinating across your HR, your leadership, your legal counsels, et cetera. Poll question for this one, just kind of trying to see, if you look back over the past couple of years, has your organization's cyber budget, grown significantly, slightly, or has it remained the same, or diminished slightly, or diminished significantly on that one? And I think, those stay up for about 2 minutes. So sorry, I didn't do a good job of pivoting to look at some of the results here yet. All right, we can go to the next slide. Okay, just thinking about, some additional tips for that finance role. Again, going back to just reinforcing, they really need to understand the full risk picture of an organization. Key job that they have is, addressing the financial risk. So, even if it's, you're multi-hatted, when you're talking to your financial leads, try to think about sometimes putting things in their terms as well. I mean, kind of work both ways. Help them align the business strategy with your cybersecurity strategy. There's certainly financial risks associated if you were to have a security incident. So, again, it's best to have them, involved up front. We even have the whole idea, approach cyber as a business risk. Maybe that's a conversation, those groups have together. You look at some of the resources that we have for taking action in that area. Organizations like NIST, we've got some CISA security tips, National Association of Corporate Directors as examples. So, finance folks may even be really good at weighing in on if you needed cybersecurity insurance. What does adequate insurance look like for you? They may be really good. And we also have, kind of in the cyber essentials, and something that, really everybody must, we're thinking about having a responsibility, but we have an idea of, 3 things to do first on the front page of our first cyber essentials infographic we released. So 3, if you do nothing else, back up your data, employ multi-factor authentication whenever, wherever you can, and, patch, update your systems, employ automatic updates wherever possible, replace unsupported operating systems, apps, hardware, and move very quickly on those things. Not to say that's just a finance role, but just thinking about those things, those require investment. So, something to think about. Kind of looking at the poll questions here, we've got a couple, a little bit of mix, some remain the same in terms of financial budgets. Some have grown slightly, some grown significantly, some diminished a little bit. So, a balance of, encouraging there for the folks that answered. but interesting to see that, especially in these times, how things could really have grown there. Okay, next slide. All right, just, some final thoughts for, Cyber Essentials and the leaders. If you go to CISA.gov, we have again, the initial Cyber Essentials Guide, the 2-page infographic, leader side and the IT professional, each with actions, color-coded by check marks, meaning, the light blue is for leaders and the gray is for typically IT professionals. I say typically, right? If you're a small organization doing all these things as a, single-hatted person, you kind of take all that on your hat. We've released the Toolkit Chapter 1, which we're talking about today, yourself the leader, and then Toolkit Chapter 2, your staff the users. And then so, the coming up future toolkits, your system should be this week, your surroundings, really talking about kind of the network that you live on, your data, as it says, protecting the data, the information that you have in as an organization, super critical for you. And then the final one that we'll release is, actions under stress, so all about planning, exercising, testing, having resources to reach out to and support you if something bad happens for your day. So I think that concludes the overview of the Cyber Essentials Leader Guide. But Daniel, happy to take questions if we have any, or go through that piece.